Hello, I'm Debbie Bell Hosking of Finextra, and with me are Jim Aramanda of the Clearing House. Hello.
Hi, Debbie.
And David Yates of VocaLink.
Hi, Debbie.
It's a good day for you. You've both penned an agreement this morning on bringing real-time payments to the United States. Jim, if I may go to you first, it's a surprise that the United States doesn't have immediate payments. Can you elaborate a bit more on this landscape?
Sure, Debbie, and I can understand that concern. We have, or that surprise. First, I might say we have 14,000 financial institutions in our country, which makes introduction of any kind of new system by definition more problematic. But I think what's also different in our market is that our regulators have not mandated that we have a real-time system as they have in the other markets. So this is something our industry is doing voluntarily. And
David, what would you add to that?
Well, I think we've discussed, Jim and I, that the U.S. market is a huge, sophisticated market, particularly when it comes to the digital economy. And I think what's become abundantly clear is that digital economy is crying out for a new banking infrastructure to carry transactions in the way in which e-commerce really demands, right?
That's absolutely right. And one of the things we're really excited about is we're building jointly a system that will leapfrog the technology that exists in these other markets and will enable a lot of innovation, both to supply today's needs, but meet the needs we're not even thinking about today.
Yeah, so the sorts of things that we've been talking about are that there is a real need for business in the US to be able to have a system to invoice other businesses or consumers with and to obtain a reconciled response back. So this big data structure that we've come up with, ISO 20022, lets them do that, but also a secure environment for consumers to transact in. So enabling them, not to have to expose all of their payment details when they want to work with another consumer or a business.
And that's really an important point. There is a lot of innovation going on in the payment space today, and a lot of it being done by the financial technology firms, which has all kinds of safety and soundness issues that the banks are concerned who we serve. And this system that we're putting in place will enable the banks to compete in that arena, but by protecting the data, providing the safety and soundness that our bank customers expect from our industry.
So if you were to summarize, how would you say today's deal would impact on the US payments landscape?
Well, it's going to allow the payment space to catch up with the rest of the digitized economy by providing real-time payments, moving large amounts of data digitally between organizations, whether it's a consumer to a consumer to a business to a consumer, or a business to business. All of these kinds of use cases and more that we haven't even thought of today would have that capability in a very flexible system that has the ability to not just move payments, but move large amounts of data. And that's what we're attempting to build here.
And how can that US landscape learn from markets like Singapore and the UK, where you have fast and faster payments implemented by VocaLink, and they're already underway? So what can be learned from that?
Oh, I mean, there are many things that can be learned from them, but there are also things we're going to have to do especially new for the US. So what can we learn? We can learn how to make the rollout of these services easier, so enable the banks and corporates to connect in with greater ease so that we achieve ubiquity faster, because ubiquity is vital for this project. The second thing we can learn is how to keep the system free from fraud, because when you make money move fast, it can move fast in the wrong direction as well. So we need to keep it very secure. Beyond that, I think the new learning for us in the US will be the sheer size of the market. It is the world's biggest payment market, and this system needs to be able to carry, not just large amounts of data, but huge volumes of transactions. So that will be very important, and the sheer number of banks we have to connect to. So there'll be a piece of learning backwards and forwards. At the end of this project, though, we think that we'll have a system that will be properly internationally capable. system that we could roll back into the UK, and indeed a system that would more than cover the requirements of the European Central Bank when it comes to implementing its own immediate payments. I guess a vision and a goal that we would talk about, it may seem a little bit far away, but the goal would be to see some greater interoperability internationally between what happens in Europe, Asia, and the US.
Yeah, I think it's, if I could add to that, it's one of the benefits that I think fast followers often enjoy. They get to, avoid all the mistakes of the early adopters and address the things that, they wish they could have, they had a do-over. And in this instance, we get to learn from what VocaLink has learned, in their deployments, not just in this market, but other markets. But and I might point out something that's also very different for the market that we're building this for is it's going to be what's called a credit push model. And this puts the initiator of the payment in control and helps eliminate fraud. It eliminates their need to provide credentials to fintech companies and others who then debit from their account. And that's where a lot of the fraud issues today come from. So this will be what we call a credit push model, puts the initiator of the payment in control and initiates the payment from their account.
Now we're looking even further ahead at newer models, new products. What do you foresee coming off the back of this real-time payments infrastructure?
Well, I think one of the early use cases that we'll go to is business to business. And that's because of the rich amount of data that we'll be able to move that David talked about. The standard that we're deploying will enable business to invoice and pay each other electronically, which they can't do today.
David, what would you say are the key components to enable interoperability?
Well, of course, today there are already interoperable international financial systems. I mean, the card systems operate globally, but not at small expense. SWIFT operates globally. I think that in time, you should expect that these large national clearing systems will find a way to connect to each other. And the closer that we can develop the standards, particularly around ISO 20022, the closer we'll be able to exchange data and transactions on a cross-border basis, as well as on a national basis. And that will mean better value for consumers, better value for businesses, and faster, cheaper transactions.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I was going to say this is a global economy, and we have to build a system that, from our perspective, fits into the global economy. Allows. We use the word ubiquitous, not just in our country, but we think for the world as well.
On that global note, thank you very much for sharing today's news of your agreement to enable immediate payments in the US.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, David. And thank you for watching.